All right, y'all. Thanks for joining me tonight. All right. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're going to be diving in to the film The Exorcist. Came out, it'll be 50 years this December. The tail end of 1963, The Exorcist comes out. Written by the man who wrote the novel just a couple years earlier. So, I don't care if you're streaming it, watching the VHS, or you got this so Blu-ray from Europe. It's going to be great. Just stick in whatever you got. Or if you don't have the film, driving around in the woods, washing dishes, cleaning house, taking a walk, just listen to what I got to say. We're going to get cozy. So we're going to improvise. All right. For those of y'all watching with me, we're a minute in. Press play. Let's go. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. It's getting scary. It is getting super scary in here. All right. So the Warner Brothers logo, I love the black and white, but I don't think that is the original title. So I really hope when the 4K comes out, we'll see what the Warner Brothers logo looked like in 1973. I love the font, the red on black. Ooh, our first jump scare. Rob Egger talks in his Excavating the Exorcist video about how that really is a subliminal jump scare to give you a sense of what you're about to get into. And I definitely felt that the first time I watched the movie. I love this black and white dissolve into red. So this is all really shot in northern Iraq. Friedkin talks on the commentary of the version you've never seen that they got permission to film in northern Iraq on the condition that they taught the Iraqi film crew, which I guess is DP Owen Roizman, the director of photography on this film. He got to come along, but they had to hire an Iraqi crew. And they also had to teach that film crew how to make fake film blood in exchange to getting to shoot at these locations. And that's really fascinating. Why would a government want a movie man from Hollywood to teach them how to make fake blood? I don't know. And that's how Friedkin's commentary begins. And he never really tells you anything that interesting again. He kind of narrates the whole film after that, as if he said too much and he shuts up. Now, I love this shot. And the font that they use for the captioning right here with the shadow on it, it looks like you're watching a film made in the early 70s that is a remake of Universal's 1932 The Mummy. Q Swan Lake. Just gorgeous cinematography here. This is a couple years before Coppola's The Godfather comes out. And even though The Godfather has that real sepia tone look to it, and it's more classical filmmaking where this has a documentary style, both films have kind of the same essence as far as their cinematography goes. It's very 70s and natural in the same way that Ingmar Bergman's Cries and Whispers is. You can just sense a cameraman's hand on the camera. You just sense that there's just a very small crew behind that camera. It feels so intimate. And that, of course, is Max von Sydow, who at this point the world would know for such Swedish films as The Seventh Seal in the late 50s, as well as The Immigrants and what is that? Very early 70s. So he would have just done that. Now he's I believe in his early 40s here. He's made to look about 20, 30 years older. And his makeup is really impressive. It's done by a guy named Dick Smith, who also made Marlon Brando look older for The Godfather, Dustin Hoffman for Little Big Man, and David Bowie in The Hunger. And if you ever seen an interview with Dick Smith, he looks like he's actually a young man wearing his own old man makeup. He's got a really interesting look. So that's super, super dope that you got a makeup guy who looks like he's wearing prosthetics. Again, Rob Ager has a film study on YouTube called Excavating the Exorcist that goes into this entire opening sequence. In the novel, it's about a page and a half, but this sequence feels like it goes on for 20 minutes. I think it's about 8-10 minutes. Okay, yeah, so this prologue here, it's 3-4 pages. But it sets the tone for the whole work, what we're about to see. And if we didn't have this piece at the beginning, it would feel like Father Merrin comes out of nowhere at the end. That probably wouldn't be such a problem in the book. It would still, if they did it that way in the novel, it wouldn't feel like, oh, boom, he came out of nowhere. It would just make sense, because in the novel, you have them trying to disprove, is it because of her parents' divorce? Is it because she has ADD? They're trying to disprove all these psychological medical issues. So it kind of makes sense if you're reading the novel that, yeah, they get a priest. But for the movie, I don't know if it's because we're seeing it with our eyes. It would just seem too, oh, we got to come up with something. So in a practical sense, it works giving us this prologue with Father Merrin, and then we're going to forget about him for the next hour and a half, and then he's going to come in at the end. But also, this prologue, just like with the opening title sequence and that jump cut to the title, this opening sequence is letting us know what kind of film we're getting into subliminally. Man, those shots look so good. Even when I first saw this movie, I saw the version you've never seen in 2000, 2001, and I just remember those shots of those artifacts right there just looking so clean and amazing. But like right here, we're evil against evil, which is what this film is all about. This film itself is a gargoyle. Let's see, the clock stops there, so we get a weird, like, classic spooky kind of thing that's happening. These are genre tropes that we expect. So we're watching this movie that looks like, what is this, The Mummy? And then you got a clock stopping like there's a ghost in the room. All these weird little things. But then the movie's going to switch over to Georgetown, and all of a sudden we're going to feel like we've been dropped into a documentary style drama. I remember asking my babysitter about this movie, and she was telling me, yeah, it's really good, but it's really slow. And I feel like I've heard other people say that too. And maybe some of that is because of this opening sequence. So like I said, it feels like it's 20 minutes long, and it's probably 10 minutes at the most. Really weird with the Muslims at prayer, but there's a guy sitting in front of them who's not praying, so it's almost like they're bowing down to him. And this stuff is incredible with the shards of light coming through. I don't know what you call this, like this tent city, or I mean, that's movie making right there. That's a telephoto lens where they're zoomed in to make it look flat, and then they just get some smoke and get these beams of light coming in. Again, Owen Roizman is the cinematographer on this. He had previously shot The French Connection for the director William Friedkin. And he does some other rando movies too, none of which are coming to mind at the moment. And now here, camera's on a dolly. We're getting not so much of a documentary style look now, but it's not inconsistent with the vibe. It's just the camera's tracking on a dolly because we're just getting these slow moving shots. And again, like another telephoto shot, the camera's far away, zoomed in on Seadow. And Friedkin mentions in his commentary that woman in the carriage was over 100 years old. And look, she just looks terrified right there. What a creepy face. And this movie is filled with creepy faces. That was one advantage of making a film in the 70s. It's just everyone on the face of the earth just looked like a great character actor. Like, look at these guys who are about to run up here. I mean, just such distinct faces. And there's that brilliant old man makeup that Von Sydow has. Allegedly, this kind of messed with his career for a few years because everybody thought he was too old. I don't buy that. All these people know each other. All these agents know each other. There's no way that's true. Green Man. What is the Green Man doing in northern Iraq? So I think that's just a legend that was perpetuated to pump up how good the makeup effects are. There's another bit of trivia. I can't remember where I read it. Maybe it was Easy Riders, Raging Bulls. But I think it's Owen Roizman, the DP, is talking about how they brought in the statue of Pazuzu. I love this movement right here. They're doing something with the shutter speed, so there's no blur when it just whips around like that. But William Friedkin, the director, was putting like raw meat and stuff at the base of the statue they had made of Pazuzu for the shoot, I guess to attract vultures. And anyway, the local people are watching this thinking that Friedkin is making sacrifices to his strange god. So that's Pazuzu, a name that's mentioned in the novel and Exorcist 2, but never in this film itself. And he's this demon of, what is it, the southwest wind. And if you were was it Sumerian, Mesopotamian, you'd wear a pendant of Pazuzu's head to scare away the evil, kind of like wearing an evil eye necklace, or again having a gargoyle. And the reason why I say this film is like a gargoyle in the book too, I mean, it scares people. This really scares people. Um, People aren't willing to get that vicious dog to scare away the other dogs, but that's kind of what this book is. All right, so now we're in Georgetown. Now we've cut to like, okay, now I know we're definitely in the 70s. And they do a great, like these are sets, but they do a really good job in The Exorcist of filming the sets of the Georgetown house to really make it look like you're in a house. When we watch Exorcist 2, The Heretic, you'll see that, I mean, all these kind of moments get repeated again, moving up the staircase, and it just looks like a set. I don't mean that's a bad thing, though. Exorcist 2 is a completely different film, and I like to believe you're meant to experience that film as a dream. So it works that everything looks like a set in that movie. And as far as any pacing criticism, once this movie gets going, it just barrels towards that finale, the exorcism. Whereas the version you've never seen, although it has some stuff I like, um, especially with the sound design, I believe that shot we just saw where it dissolves from Iraq to Georgetown, I don't think in the theatrical cut we heard a jet flying in to DC, but I think in the director's cut he adds that. So it's this idea of that flying thing coming to Georgetown, the subliminal notion that a demon is coming in when we hear the jet. But there's some extra stuff in there, like Friedkin throws in a scene that they had originally cut out where the doctor name drops Adderall, and I guess he wanted, or Ritalin. It's Ritalin. I guess he wanted to put that in there to show like how ahead of the time they were. But it slows the film down, and there's also that great monologue from Von Sydow on the staircase during the finale that's not in the theatrical cut. But when you take that stuff out, it just gives the movie just, I think, a better flow. Because as we watch this, the closer we get to the end, you'll see how the scenes get tighter and tighter. And there's even a moment I'll point out when Karras and his uncle leave the geriatric asylum. It looks like a shot from a trailer where they're outside talking. I'll point it out to you. And I just love the pacing and cutting of that. All right, so that's Jack McGowan of Fearless Vampire Killers. He plays opposite Roman Polanski in that movie and Sharon Tate. Which is creepy. So that he had just done that movie, so you get a Manson connection here. I know it's a stretch, but you know it's still creepy. And the fact that Jack McGowan dies either right after the movie comes out or right after filming his scenes. And we're about to see William Peter Blatty himself in a cameo playing. Is he playing the writer of this film within a film, or is he playing the producer? He's playing one or both, and he is producer and screenwriter on this film. So he's kind of poking fun at himself, which the movie has a lot of nice little light moments like that. We also just saw a shot of Jason Miller smiling when he laughs at Burke's crass joke. And I believe that's in the film to show that Father Karras, played by Jason Miller, is an earthy man. He's a priest, but he's someone we can relate to. But I never liked that because we see him for the first time and he's got a big grin. He's laughing at that joke. But now for the rest of the movie, he's going to look just like that, just pensive and stressed. And even on first viewing, that shot just kind of threw me off. And it might also be because this movie has some shots and has some just makeup and wardrobe stuff going on that just makes it look very dated. So when Father Karras pops up and he's like, I don't know, even at 17, when I saw that for the first time, I was just like, it's just too much. And I don't know why I think of it as 70s, but that's really the only moment in the movie where I was like, I'm not crazy about that. So we're about to hear Tubular Bells, which becomes known as the theme of The Exorcist, and only pops up one other time in the movie. This beautiful autumnal sequence. And if you look closely, when it cuts to the front of her, you'll see that she's wearing an evil eye pendant, like the hand. That's a nice touch. And I love the subliminal of, okay, they're trick-or-treating. So either this is like the Saturday before Halloween, or it is Halloween, but Halloween is coming. Love that shot, man. Just, is it on a dolly? Is it handheld? Like, that is just a cool flowing shot. Now, if you listen here, you're going to hear a jet come in, and it's going to muffle what Father Karras is saying. Yeah, like this anxiety, like here comes the demon. That's Rob Ager. He's the one that pointed out that how that subliminally alludes to the wings of the demon coming in. And I think he's right. It would be freakier if that was an accident and not a directorial decision. Now there's Kitty Wynn, and the only other movie I know that she's been in is Exorcist 2. But there's also a movie called Panic in Needle Park that she stars in with Al Pacino. I've never seen. All right, look at this here. Linda Blair gives such a natural performance in this whole movie, but especially these scenes. Like right here, this whole shot, it's like Friedkin just does an excellent job of just, this is just so natural. And when you see her in any other movie, she's a camp queen. She overacts. She's great. I love her in Savage Streets and Hell Night. But she's very much acting. It's very artifice. And here she's so natural. See that laugh right there? It's just, and she's talking here about how she rode a horse today with her tutor. They went and rode horses because her tutor, Katie Wynn's, her boyfriend, works at the stables. I love this shot here too. Look at this. They're playing, but on first viewing, I could see like there's something ominous about that shot. How the camera is tracking in, and the mom is dominating the daughter. That's subliminal foreshadowing of what's about to happen in this movie. That's definitely on purpose. That is definitely the director and cinematographer and actors creating that. But to go back to the whole thing about the horse, and Jungian psychology, the horse is connected to the libido. And in my other videos on The Exorcist, my boy P.D. Newman has brought that up, that William Peter look at that look of revulsion. This priest is done. He has nothing more to give. Danny pointed out that she rides a horse before the movie's even started, and this awakens her libido. This movie is about a young woman in the peak of her puberty. It's about a sexual awakening, and it's about how terrifying it is for parents to deal with that. It's not a movie about, the parents divorced, so she's being crazy. It's the demon stuff and the possession stuff is all about being possessed by the libido, specifically a little girl. And that's terrifying. And keep in mind, this comes out after all the Manson stuff destroyed the Summer of Love. Manson and his gang killed the 60s. So you got all these paranoid baby boomer parents, And no wonder they flocked to this film and rushed right out throwing up, because it's a movie about their little girls. Just nobody wants to talk about that stuff. And there's some shots later on in the finale. I'll point out the scariest moment in this movie for me, and it's basically a shot of a young girl in bed with her eyes rolled back in her head. And surely Sylvester Stallone saw this movie, so when he's writing Rocky, I'm sure a little bit of The Exorcist is in there, because we have this. Well, he's Greek, um, but there's definitely, at least in a Christian sense, a connection with Greece and Rome. We got this dark headed man who's a boxer and a man of faith. Um, Rocky opens with a shot of the Virgin looking over a boxing ring. So I would be curious to know if Stallone was thinking about, just some of the images from this movie when he was writing Rocky. This woman's fantastic too, and not an actor. This woman's not an actor. She died not long after filming was wrapped, but gives such a natural performance. So that's a credit to her and her director. And even someone like Jason Miller, who, when he made this flick, he was a actor, but primarily a playwright. And look how he's wearing his wristwatch. I guess that was the thing. That does not look comfortable at all. And Exorcist 2, The Heretic, which had no connection to Blatty and the novel as far as how they were written. It goes, they go to Ethiopia in that movie, and Ethiopia has been a Christian country longer than any other place in the world. So it's cool how in the sequel they go to like the ancient land to figure out how to fight Pazuzu. So I will make the connection that Damian Karras is a Greek. Now he's Roman Catholic, but he is a Greek. So it's a stretch, but there is that Orthodox connection there. And when I'm talking about Orthodox compared to Catholic, this is post Vatican II. This book is coming out of Vatican II. So I'm sure someone like Blatty, I don't want to speak for him, but I'm sure in a way he kind of romanticizes the Orthodox because they haven't changed for 2,000 years. And I think this book was a response to Vatican II, and all these changes, the legalization of divorce and abortion, all that other stuff I've talked about, promiscuous sex. I think that's why the art is so damn good in the 70s. Things went down in the 60s and the early 70s, and then the rest of that decade, we get the response to it. So, of course, here's the Ouija board. It's like it's showing you tropes. It's giving you the tropes. In a movie like E.T., it's way more subliminal. They're playing what, Dungeons and Dragons before the alien E.T. shows up. Well, in this movie, Friedkin's going to give you the tropes you're looking for because he's a good director. He knows that there's just certain things I got to give him. And there's good stuff like that in this movie, like how the what do you call that, the plectorum or whatever it's called. I forget what you'd call the thing that moves around on the Ouija board, but the way it flies, and we, the audience, see that that's totally supernatural, but the actors don't respond to it that way. I think that's awesome because it makes me think of moments in real life where supernatural things happen to people, and we just immediately are like, no, that didn't happen. And then we forget about it. But maybe for a brief moment, we're like, oh my God, that was my ghost story. I know there's some atheists listening to this right now who probably have a ghost story. They may not call it a ghost, but it's like, oh, it's that one creepy moment. I was in a hotel room and I swore I felt someone touch my leg. I'm an atheist, but whatever. So this movie has a couple moments like that. The other one's in the attic where the candle blows up. But again, we, the audience, see one thing. The characters react a different way. And it's just the best depiction on film I've ever seen of how human beings can just rationalize anything and be totally oblivious to the spiritual warfare they're living in. So more just naturalistic cinematography. Linda Blair is so beautiful in this movie. Pauline Kael really rips her parents a new one. And I guess in a way her parents did. I'm not gonna say ruin her life, but I mean, this film would dominate the rest of her life for sure. Warner Brothers had to pay for security for I don't know how many years after this film came out because people thought she was just evil because she was in this movie. Um, Something else interesting I'll say about Linda Blair. And you can all this information's easy to find. You can watch her episode of biography on YouTube. I think she's 17 when she's dating a 24-year-old Rick Springfield, Jesse's girl. That's in the late 70s. So her Presbyterian parents, who didn't actually believe in the devil and put her in this movie, were totally fine with pederastry. And I guess probably most of the world just 30, 40 years ago was good with men in their early 20s dating what we would consider minors, but women who are on the other side of puberty, but they're still under 18. So yeah, you heard that right. Rick Springfield was well, let's just say they were dating. We know they were dating. We don't know anything else. But by the time Linda Blair gets in her early 20s, this is true too. You're going to think I'm making it up, but it's true. You can see photographs and everything. Linda Blair actually dated Rick James. Fascinating story. And she ends up getting pregnant and calling Rick James on the phone to let him know that their relationship's over and she's terminated the pregnancy. Really sad. I speculate that her parents probably put her up to it because she was still kind of early in her career. She didn't know this at the time, but her career was never going to be as good as it was with The Exorcist or even doing, some of the schlock she did in the early 80s. So should she have gone ahead and had Rick James' child? I'm not going to tell her what to do. But I do know that Rick James has said in print that he believes that that's what derailed his whole life. I don't think that's true. I just think that that's a man's way of not being accountable. And he sadly probably spent many nights in the last decades of his life thinking, oh, if only Linda had had my child, if only I'd had that family, I wouldn't have been so screwed up. So it's really sad stuff. It's really sad stuff. But yeah, can you believe it? Um, there's a song called Cold Blooded by Rick James. It's about Linda Blair. um, that man right there, he's one of the theological consultants on the film, an actual priest playing a priest. He gives a more wooden performance in the film, but we can forgive him because I like it when folks like Herzog and other directors use real people in their movies. So anyone who's a child of divorce or has been divorced, I mean, this is really what it's like. I mean, even though her parents are separated, her dad's on a sailboat in the middle of the ocean. She's eavesdropping and hearing her mom yell. Now mom's not yelling directly at the dad, but I mean, this is real sad stuff that kids listen to. I guess even kids whose parents don't divorce. So the movie is planting the idea of, well, maybe whatever is happening is psychological. This is the aftermath of, my gosh. And I always forget about this, but when rewatching the movie, you can look at Linda Blair's room. It almost doesn't even look like the same room because as the movie goes on, the room will get more and more sparse. Look at that tan phone and yellow stuff. And see, a lot of people think the 80s is all like neon colors. That's actually more a better depiction of what the 80s would have looked like. So what a movie star in 73 has in their penthouse in 73 is closer to what, middle class family in the 80s would have, like that phone. I mean, I didn't have that phone, but that yellow, there's just something very it's like ugly. It's like just these ugly kind of I don't know, it's weird. It's weird, but I love it. Yeah, so here's the scene where we're gonna get another our first real jump scare. And again, you see with your naked eye a candle do something that it shouldn't do, but the actors behave as, oh, it's Carl, um, the not the butler, but the servant, the her her live-in. We'll just call him the servant. She's a movie star, and she's shooting a film in DC, and she's got a husband wife that works for her. Look at that shot. That looks just like Psycho. Not Vivian Lee, Janet Lee. Looks like Janet Lee laying on the bathroom floor in Psycho. Did Owen Roizman and William Friedkin do that on purpose? I think probably. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they had to have known that's what it looks like. And it's a cool shot too, because it has something very distinctly 70s about it, which I don't know what that is, but it also has something timeless about it. So I imagine when this film came out, that was just like a really clean, crisp looking image. And what 13 years earlier, Psycho comes out, and Psycho has shots like that too. The stuff with the highway patrolman with the sunglasses, and the shot of the detective walking into, is it a shop? It's like right after Janet Lee dies, and there's that shot in Psycho where it's like a close up on the detective's face, and then the camera like dollies back while on his face. Yeah, I mean, these are like the Brat Pack Hollywood guys. Of course, they're all watching Hitchcock. And so this movie has a lot of genre stuff in it because Friedkin knows he's got to give his audience that stuff. But this is kind of a anti-genre movie. I mean, even in this darkness where our lighting is coming from flashlights, it doesn't look like a horror movie. I mean, that shot right there but I mean, people always use the word documentary. That's called a cassock. Those priests in the background are wearing, just black suit, sport coat kind of thing, but that dude's wearing a cassock. Hell yeah. So this is probably the point of the movie where the kids who have been watching it and they're like, when's it gonna get scary? This might be the moment where like, oh. And okay. So right here in the foreground, we can see the Virgin. She's been desecrated. We just can't see it yet. And the camera is actually from the perspective of the person who would have desecrated it. This doesn't really make sense, but you got to have it for the movie. He hasn't noticed at all that the statue is desecrated, but he's walked in here and put the flowers in here a million times. Kind of a Silence of the Lambs moment, like where Scott Glenn goes, Clarice. I love that. It's a push in Silence of the Lambs, but I love in a movie where instead of moving the camera, they move the actor. So that actor actually walked up into the camera to go into close up, from medium shot to close up, and he's like, "Oh God!" The sound in this movie is really great. I don't know if that was just really good ADR or they just had some really sensitive mics, but you get a lot of good, just like quiet talking in this movie. All right, so here's another example of great character actors in the 70s. Who here has seen the movie Annie Hall from 1977? That is Woody Allen's mom in Annie Hall. That woman right there. Now, Friedkin claims that they guerrilla style shot this footage. And it looks like that, right? It looks like they just have the camera up there, like where Karras's face is, and they just have the camera up there and they're zoomed in getting these shots. But I don't think that's true because that woman played Woody Allen's mom in the opening scenes of Annie Hall. That is that woman. But maybe some of the other shots of women were actual not inmates, but patients. But look how creepy. And watch, she's gonna take the Roman collar. Yeah, look. She takes it. They're just just a little moment like that to show that this is just a man being torn apart by his duties and responsibilities, Mama, these scenes are powerful. They're real quick and short, but they are heavy. Why you do this to me, Demi? No, this right here. I mean, I mean, for anyone who has watched their grandmother or mother die and be in a hospital, this shit is hard to watch. This is the scene right here. It's like there was a bigger scene, but we just cut right to a over the shoulder shot, reverse over the shoulder shot. Who got the money for that? It's like that. What we just saw, that scene, is like what you would expect to be in a trailer for a movie from the 70s. The actual scene would be much longer. But Friedkin just, it's like ahead of its time. Just, it's like a trailer moment, but that's the scene. Now, in the novel, one thing that we don't get in the movie is there's a book on witchcraft that the mother character finds in the house, and she's trying to figure out how did her daughter get this. And so in this dinner party scene, when she's talking to the priest, uh, Father Karras's friend, that guy right there, who's another real priest, um, she's the mother's asking him about black mass and what is all this stuff. So that's the part of the movie, or that's part of the novel that's not in the movie. And also we get more with this man right here that works for the mother. In the book, there's a subplot where they're really trying to paint him as a suspect for who killed Burke. And I mean, it's kind of in the movie too, because Burke is harassing him. I don't know who that woman is, but I mean, just like, again, like just incredible looking people. I mean, she looks like she could be one of Stanley Kubrick's daughters. You'd see her in the gold room. Oh, and I cannot recall this actor slash real life priest's name at the moment, but Lord have mercy, when all the Me Too stuff was initially happening, he got Me Too'd, if anybody saw that. I don't know whatever came of it. So if he's an innocent man, I hope his name was cleared. And if it's true, then God have mercy. What is that? So another nice detail here, that her bedroom window's open. Why is it open? Yes, yes. I've been brushed. I've been brushed. Thanks for stopping by, PD and Metatron. Uh, yeah, thanks for being here, y'all. It's fun watching the movie with you. I also want to give a shout out to my friend Thor. It's his birthday today. It's a really cool dress. I don't know what she's wearing, but it looks like it could have come straight out of the closet in Pugh's Moment. And Kitty Wynn is wearing some kind of kimono looking thing. Um, the movie's just going to start going faster and faster from this point on. Yeah, I mean, I'm getting what's the priest from The Sopranos vibes? Like a gay version of the priest in The Sopranos. And I love how they put that in there. That's obviously he's playing show tunes, so they would have been aware. And the actor who's playing almost himself in the movie would have been aware. Yikes. So that dude that she just said you're gonna die up there, he's an astronaut. They don't tell you that in the movie. But I love that. I love how the movie just, it makes it feel like a larger world when just stuff is missing. That guy right there that she said you're gonna die up there, he's an astronaut. She's saying you're gonna die up on the moon. He's the main character in the novel slash movie, The Ninth Configuration. That movie, which is directed by William Peter Blatty, who would go on to direct Exorcist 3, which is based on Blatty's book Legion. His movie, I haven't read the novel, but his movie, Ninth Configuration, opens with that astronaut getting on the shuttle and then having a nervous breakdown and be like, no, I can't do it. I can't do it. So that was him. So Ninth Configuration is in the same universe. We won't call it a sequel, but we'll say it's in the same universe as The Exorcist. Y'all see those butterflies in the background? I don't know if I've ever noticed that before, but nice little monarch touch in the background, because she's going to be possessed. So it would not be weird to do some allusions to monarch mind control. And while we're talking about conspiracy theories like that, if you're like me, you were introduced to The Exorcist. Well, I knew what The Exorcist was. I knew she was a creepy looking girl. I thought she was The Exorcist, but I saw it for the first time as the version you've never seen. And yikes. And anyway, when they put that version back out in theaters at the end of the millennium, nobody was passing out, nobody was vomiting. And you could say, oh, well, that's because people have been desensitized in the 25 years since the first movie came out. But nobody would. I mean, they back in the 70s. I know that they did like second runs of this movie. Nobody threw up or passed out then. Nobody, when it came out on home video, at least Shiv Reg, nobody. You didn't hear these crazy stories about the audience reaction to the movie, but when it first came out, you did. So, Christopher Knowles theorizes that this was a government job and they used the film's theatrical screening as a cover to test out ultrasonic weapons. And so, if that sounds crazy, it shouldn't, because our government has tested much worse things on its citizens. Much worse things. Now, yes, somebody did pass out. They were trying to leave the theater because they were feeling dizzy and they passed out and broke their jaw. I think that's the worst thing that happened to somebody. Plenty of people threw up. So yeah, sure. That's a great cover. A state of the art, big budget horror film based on a runaway novel. Yeah, let's use that as a cover to test out subsonic weapon, like sounds that make people throw up. You can't hear them, but they're going to make you throw up. And again, if you think that's far-fetched, when we look at the novel itself, and this is a like a book club edition, so this isn't the first edition of the novel, but this is like from the early 70s. It's the smaller, tiny book club version. But look what it says in the author bio. It's right here. About the author. William Peter Blatty, born New York, educated at Jesuit schools. An information agency in Lebanon, and was the policy branch chief of the U.S. Air Force Psychological Warfare Division in the U.S. Like what? Like they put that in the author bio. Psychological warfare for the Air Force. Psychological warfare. So this whole work of art could be about manipulating us and learning things from us. I mean, clearly Blatty studied Jung, right? Clearly William Peter Blatty studied Carl Jung, because you got the horse stuff in there. Now, this next thing I'll tell you isn't so much conspiracy theory. It's what I like to call it's a coincidence, but if it really is a coincidence, that's more awe-inspiring than if the director did it on purpose. And let's go back to the idea of the horse. So I believe 100% that Danny is right and that Blatty understood the sexual awakening motif with the horse riding, and that's why he put it in the book. But here's where it gets creepy. Richard Burton stars in Exorcist II: The Heretic. Richard Burton did that movie on condition that Warner Brothers would finance a film version of the play Equus. Does anybody know what the word equus means? Because equus is a play about a boy who turns from being obsessed with Christ to obsessed with, I don't know if I can say it on YouTube, but I'll just say it's horses and sex. So how weird? How weird. That's your other horse sex connection with The Exorcist. But that's got to be a total coincidence because Richard Byrne didn't care about The Exorcist. He just wanted Equus to be made into a movie because he had had great success with it on the stage. And I guess he figured, I want to make a comeback in Hollywood. So I'm already getting accolades for my performance in Equus. Let's make it a movie. And it's directed by Sidney Lumet. So it's another very 70s movie, a good movie, but very 70s. All right, here's some more creepy connections for you. That dude right there, look at that leather wristband he's wearing. That dude right there would go on to murder men that he would pick up in bars. And was it Variety Fair? Vanity, was it Variety or Vanity Fair or the Village Voice? A journalist wrote an article called Cruising about that guy who picked up men in gay bars and killed them, called Cruising. Brian De Palma bought the rights and ended up writing a script of Cruising. Or maybe he couldn't get the rights, but his script of Cruising becomes Dressed to Kill. And William Friedkin, who directs The Exorcist, directs the movie Cruising, which has Al Pacino in it. So going back to Katie Wynn. So how creepy. So that these are real texts. We're seeing like a real spinal tap or whatever they're doing to her. Well, I don't know. The blood that we're seeing is probably all fake. Surely they didn't really do that to Linda Blair, but it looks so real. And Friedkin has said on more than one occasion that this sequence was used to teach professionals how to do this procedure because it's so authentic. I would imagine there's probably a longer version of it somewhere because you're not getting the whole procedure, obviously. And Friedkin has lied a lot. He's lied over and over again about things. So he's really good about saying stuff that sounds good, but he's inconsistent. It's like, dude, you lied. Oh, but look at that. The blood. So again, there's nothing demonic happening here. But this is awful. This is why people like Paul and Kale look at this movie as torture porn, and it's awful. And what are they doing to this little girl? But that's great. It's feeding into that parental anxiety. And even if you're a young kid watching this movie, which you should be if you're seeing it for the first time, you'll be affected too. I saw this film in Montreal in a hotel room, renting the version you've never seen while my family went out to eat. And it was a spiritual experience watching this movie. Granted, it was the version you've never seen cut alone in a hotel room in a foreign country. It was absolutely amazing. And these sequences were just like, yeah, it's just, this is another good jump scare. So watch this. It's just loud. The sound in this movie is great. Great shot. How could you resist putting that in there? And of course, we as the audience, we don't know what we're looking at, but the acne, I love it. I love like, and who knows? It was the 70s. That guy could be 22. you know. Okay, we're really picking up now. You will notice that the camera is handheld, but I've seen behind the scenes footage of this, and it's not really a guy holding a camera. They kind of have it in a swing. The Steadicam hadn't come out yet, but they're intentionally wanting to get that shaky. It's made to look like a guy with a much smaller camera is filming it. Well, we're gonna see those wide eyes. It took me a little while to realize it's not that her eyes turn white; it's that they roll into the back of her head. Great prosthetic effects right there. That's those bladders that you'll see Rick Baker use in American Werewolf in London. See, it's not just that that's outrageous. And what's the most outrageous thing we could think of? It's because this movie is about sexual awakening in the same way that, I don't know. I haven't read The Yellow Wallpaper in a long time, but there's some repressed sexual stuff in that short story, surely. Again, great sound. We just cut to silence. The naturalistic lighting, they look like they're not wearing makeup, but they're wearing makeup to be made to look like they're not wearing makeup. Back when doctors wore three-piece suits. It's so old-timey. I mean, they're closer to Sherlock Holmes and Mr. Watson. Now they would just be two dudes in some scrubs. Cufflinks and everything. His elbow, I mean, that's not just like a weirdly, that's done intentionally. Like, look how just tiny she looks, and these doctor men dominating her. The way the shot's composed. I don't think people outside of the biz and people who study film, I don't think they realize how everything is intentional in a film. Films cost millions of dollars. There's nothing that's in it by mistake. So that goes for tricky shots like that, where you're subliminally made to feel like these guys are bad, even though they haven't done anything bad, but there's kind of like the framing makes them antagonistic. To things like subtext in this film, whether you want to argue like Rob Egger does and other videos he's done, that there's child abuse subtext in this movie, or what I'm arguing, that the whole film is about female sexual awakening and how it's horrifying, you know. um I mean, think about it. When you hear women say, "Oh yeah, I was 13 when I first noticed the power I had over men," that's repulsive and terrifying to most people. So it's a film about faith. It's a book and movie devised to prove that evil exists. Therefore, if evil exists, God must exist. But I think the subtext and what really makes it succeed is it's actually a story about female puberty and how scary it is. When this scene began, it opened on a close up of the back of Ellen Burstyn's head. And I know the first time I saw this movie, I didn't know what I was looking at. Every time I've rewatched it, I've known, but I wonder if anybody here has the same had the same experience watching this movie for the first time, where you just see that silk bandana and you're like, dude, what am I looking at? As little things like that just keep you on your toes the whole movie. So now we moved through the medical stuff. Now it's time to get into the psychological stuff. We're just checking off the list. What's wrong with this girl? And all this stuff has moved really quickly. Jack Nietzsche does the music for this movie. He is the bass player from Crazy Horse, if you're familiar with Neil Young's backing band. And I want to say he scores all of those Friedkin movies from. I think he does French Connection, and I know he does Cruising. I'm not sure if he does Live and Die in L.A., but Jack Nietzsche was kind of famous for doing film scores that don't use musical instruments. So the music is either classical or it's progressive rock, Mike Oakfield. But the incidental and music in this movie is done by Jack Nietzsche, and it really overlaps well because like the classical music. Oh, that's such a creepy shot. Like she's just laying flat on her face, like she'd be dead or something. That is so creepy. And again, open window. Why is open? That's just it's more genre stuff. It looks like something from The Uninvited or The Innocents. And they spent so much money refer so you could get the real life exhaust out of the mouth, which of course now would all be CGI, but it would look fake and take you out of the movie. At least the special effects in this movie, when they look fake, they look tactile and they're really existing. So it's not that something looks fake. That's not what's wrong with CGI. CGI just doesn't look like it exists there. Same reason why early blue screen stuff just makes you want to vomit because it's not really there. And the character Ellen Burstyn's playing is such a bitch, but you understand her the whole time. And this would have been the scene that has the spider walk, which is another great moment from the version you've never seen. But they just couldn't make it work, so it's not in the movie. So I can't really be objective about it because I do miss that shot, but maybe it's too much. It probably is too much. It's probably good that you don't get that scene. It's really cool, but it's so freaky and over the top. Like, this is a cool scene with the hypnotist, so it's just so freaky and over the top, it's like you kind of would go back down after this. It's more of something you would need to see at the end. It's like the head spinning around scene. So you don't need the spider walk because we're climaxing here, and but and I don't even know if the version you've never seen is available on Blu-ray. I don't have my DVD anymore, and this version or this Blu-ray release that came from overseas, it comes with the extended director's cut, which is an absolute piece of shit. Um, it adds music to scenes that didn't have music. It's like Friedkin thought, oh, no one's gonna like my movie if I don't make it like a shitty 2000s movie. So it's like you're supposed to be scared. Let me put some scary music, and it's like, man, fuck you, Billy Friedkin. You really look down at your audience that much. Um, Petey Newman brought up Crazy Horse. So yeah, so here's some more just weird horse stuff in this movie. And again, that's just coincidence. But that's what makes it creepier. Her teeth look kind of yellow there when she just did that, and they're gonna act like there's a bad smell in the room, and you can like smell it. All right, eat your heart out, Darren Aronofsky. That's like the tripod connected to the body thing. So he stays the same, but the background moves as he falls to the floor. That's a really good shot. All right, so now we're gonna meet a character that I really love. Father Karras, who we're looking at, he is one of my favorite literary figures ever. I mean, I just relate to that character so much. He wants to be a man of God, but it's so awful. So, and then here is Lee J. Cobb playing Lieutenant Kinderman, Kinderman, and Blatty claims that this dude was going to get his own TV show, but then he got screwed over, and that show became Columbo. And this dude is Columbo. His whole method is let me just nag and nag and nag and until people give me what I want. They're like, fine, I'll tell you what you want. Just leave me alone. And that's this detective's procedure. And he's so fun in this movie, and he's really enjoyable in the novel. Um, you get even more of him in the novel, and it's a lot of fun. These dudes have a great bromance. Incidentally, Blatty loves the word incidentally. When you read his novel, it feels like he wrote the book in one sitting, and a lot of the characters use some of the same words, like incidentally, but it doesn't hurt the novel. I kind of like it where every character in the book kind of speaks like Blatty, but not totally. It's almost like you can just sense him in every word, like he is putting on a puppet show for you. So there's a little bit of him in every character. What's doing and incidentally, those are two phrases that you'll hear over and over again in the novel, especially incidentally. You'll hear different characters saying incidentally. You'll hear Reagan McNeil, the mom, say, "What's doing?" And that's just like a cute little thing that she says that I've never heard anybody say, but it sounds like something someone would actually say. All right, so there's your little zoom in, your lazy zoom in that you get in the 70s. This movie has a lot of zooms. That's probably the only one I can think of right now that is just kind of too much where it's like, come on, y'all. So lazy. But for the most part, you're getting like Sven Nykvist quality zooms where it's just very natural and works. The kind of stuff you'd see in Cries and Whispers and Unbearable Lightness of Being. Exactly. See, I don't know if this is ADR or on location. If it is a ADR, it is very well done. No, this has to be on location sound. Camera just steady zooming. But it works. Again, everybody uses the term documentary style for the way this movie's shot. And the movement of the camera just makes us feel like we're steady moving towards the exorcism. I mean, that's what we're here for. And while we're on that, I'll point out that um, high concept. So people ask, like, what is high concept when it comes to a movie or a book? What does high concept mean? Um, this is I'm not going to give you a definition, but this will help you understand it. So a lot of times when it's high concept, it's one word. So think Jaws, E.T., The Exorcist. So what does that tell you? It's high concept. We know there's going to be an exorcism. I've also heard high concept defined as it's this and a this. So meaning there's some familiarity with a twist. If you got a good definition for high concept, put it in the chat. Father paranoia. So so this is a Jesuit university. These are Jesuit priests. William Peter Blatty, the novelist, you know, before he was working for the psychological warfare department, and like how the hell did that even happen? He got a grant. He's like an immigrant, a Lebanese immigrant. He got a grant or a scholarship rather. There's tubular bells one more time. That's the last time we'll hear it in the movie until the end credits. Yeah, he got a scholarship to go to this Jesuit university, Georgetown. Um, the Jesuits invented education, as far as I know. It's the Society of Jesus is what the Jesuits are. And towards the end of his life, William Peter Blatty was very vocal about his displeasure with Georgetown and the Jesuits, and probably the same way that this book was partly a reaction to Vatican II. Um, Catholics becoming Protestants, people who don't actually believe in the devil. In this scene, they're going to say exorcism is something the Catholic Church keeps in the closet as a kind of embarrassment. And what better place to poke fun at religion than Hollywood? So, if you are a man of God with a real axe to grind with your peers and spiritual fathers, Hollywood's a great place to do that. Do you have any religious beliefs? That was a commercial. I'm just popping into our live stream here. It's pretty scary. Pretty scary, pretty freaky. So yeah, I guess before this movie came out, no one knew what exorcism was or possession. Again, when I was a little kid and I knew about Michael Myers and Freddy, Gremlins, The Exorcist, I just knew The Exorcist is this creepy little girl in like a hospital gown with her face all scratched up, and she lives in my attic. I don't know at one point I realized what an exorcist was, but this movie, at least in America, had to have been what brought it into the consciousness of the world. And now we have the Pope's Exorcist about to come out. Um, Demon and ghost movies continue to conquer in the realm of horror. But in Catholic and Orthodox countries, uh, uh, and of course, other places, people know what possession is and exorcism. They might not use the word exorcism, but possession has always been around. There's a movie, I think it's from 1966, Italian black and white film. I don't recall the name, but it actually has a scene in it. I've watched it on YouTube of a woman in a church doing the spider walk. But what's creepy is I don't know if Blatty and Friedkin had seen that film. Maybe they had. I can't remember if the spider walk is in the book. It is, isn't it? I don't remember though. I've read the book like 3 or 4 times and I don't remember if it's in the book. But there is a Italian black and white film from the mid 60s about a woman who's possessed and she does the spider walk in a church. Now she's not like walking downstairs, but they get the actress, doing the crab walk thing and she does walk around and it's creepy. Now, and that would be creepy if that was a total coincidence. Like a spirit is guiding, like, yeah, you know what would be creepy? Make her do a spider walk like a crab. Oh yeah, that is creepy. Let's put that in the movie. Having no idea that that's already happened in another movie. That's what we call the muse. That's what we call being a vessel to spirits when we create art. All right, so this is another. Oh God, Rob Ager is the man. If you don't know Rob Ager, ROB space AGER. He's been on YouTube forever. If he's not the first film essayist on YouTube, he's the second. He's great. And he brings up, watch what happens with this cross, okay? This crucifix. The mother has taken the crucifix from under the pillow in her daughter's room. What man? Lieutenant Kinderman comes to the door. Look, she lays the crucifix down right there. I want you to note that. I want you to note that. She put that crucifix right there on that table. Now, the movie kind of chills out for a minute. And we're going to get a lot of zooms. we're going to get a really not funny, but it's funny to me. We're going to get 2 over the shoulder shots where camera zooms in, cut to the other character, zoom in. Stanley Kubrick would have been able to make it work nice, I'm sure. But again, I think the zoom is existing just to give us a sense of perpetual movement forwards. See, just slow zoom in, cut, slow zoom in. But we're seeing Kinderman do his thing. He's a real charming and nice old man, but he's also bugging the shit out of you, so you're going to give him the information he's looking for. I like his pinstripe three-piece suit. There's like some red in those pinstripes. And I don't know if it's just my association with like the hand-me-down Return of the Jedi blanket I used to have. But all this old stuff, even when I think it looks cool, looks so uncomfortable to me. But that might just be my own projection of just, I don't know. Maybe I just had some cheap stuff. Because again, what you think the 80s looked like is not what it looked like. And I don't remember much of the 80s at all. But this is more what the 80s look like. I guess it's because the poor people in the 80s had hand-me-down 70s shit. That's why. I mean, look at that ear hair. Like when this 4K comes out, we'll be able to count every strand of Lee J. Cobb's ear hair, his whiskers. And oh, that's what I don't like about it. Now we're doing the zoom out. So we did the whole like zoom in, zoom out. But it works because if we were watching 60 Minutes, you would see stuff like this. So for the audience member that's not analyzing all this, it's going to put them into a state of, oh, I'm watching something real. Even though 60 Minutes is fake and just as fabricated as any news program, the preface is it's real. We're going into it as it's real. So I believe that Friedkin is using these really kind of lackluster anti-Hollywood kind of cinematography to subliminally communicate to us this is real and thus make it scary. So yeah, Reagan's drawings. Oh, I just saw a frog. There's turtles. Is that Moloch? That looked like the Bohemian Grove Moloch right there. Yeah, so he found that little piece of clay outside at the bottom of the stairs. The film never follows up with that. It's just another mystery. And something that you also get from the novel that's not as apparent in the movie is this is a murder mystery. They're trying to figure out who killed Burke Dennings. And his head is twisted around. You know, he either someone to him and threw out the window, or he landed just right and did that. And that's super creepy. So it's like a murder mystery with a suggestion of a satanic secret society. So if Lee J. Cobb was the main character of this movie, and we were seeing the whole movie from his point of view, it would be Poirot in America with the suggestion that there's a satanic secret society around us or a satanic serial killer. Kind of like what we get with Exorcist 3. And that's why I like to say that The Exorcist has a bit of giallo to it. And if you don't know what giallo is a film subgenre, proto slasher films from the 60s and 70s and in the 80s, but I would say Tenebrae is kind of the last great giallo. Opera is really good too, and I love oh, what's it called? That Lamberto Bava movie, Photo of Goya. But they're no Tenebrae. They're no Tenebrae. But yeah, they're just these proto slashers. They're called giallo because they're inspired by the murder mysteries, like Edgar Wallace paperbacks that were yellow. This isn't a giallo, but just to give you an example, giallo, yellow. But the film movement, it's basically Agatha Christie with tits and blood. What Brian De Palma is doing. Basically, you have Hitchcock, Argento does his version of Hitchcock, and then De Palma takes all that and makes, you know, Dress to Kill and Blowout and Body Double. All right, so if it couldn't be any clearer what this movie is about, that right there. I'm gonna quote P.D. Newman one more time. this is something he's never said in an essay, but he said it to me before, and maybe he said it in jest, but I've always taken it to heart. There's two gods, um, Eros and Thanatos, sex and death. So just the blood and her like stabbing herself like that. Whew, those eyes jiggled. Did you see that when her head turned around? The eyes went so creepy. That's a great shot. Autumnal. Another interesting thing that Friedkin does mention in his commentary is Karis is always rising. He's constantly going up when we see him. He's constantly walking upstairs, walking up a hill. So this is it, y'all. We're over an hour into the movie, and we're gonna start just it's all towards the exorcism now. The last time I really sat down and watched this, I think, was with my friend Heath, and it's like we put it on just to see like what the quality of the disc looked like or something. And we ended up watching the whole movie because that's what happens when you watch a flick like this. What's another one? Put in the comments like what's a movie where if it, you catch it on TV, you're just gonna get sucked into it and watch the whole thing. And it's really the actors. It's great direction, great cinematography, editing, music, special effects, makeup. But these actors just really make it so easy. This is another example of those telephoto shots I was talking about. Look how like just smashed everything looks. There's no depth of field because you're zoomed in on something. Makes for a very voyeuristic shot, but not necessarily voyeuristic in an ominous way. Um, yeah, and interesting when he meets her for the first time, he doesn't dress in his cassock. He doesn't dress like the church. I still haven't seen the church, Danny. Yeah, I got to see that. I do have some friends who watched it recently, and I think I can't remember who directs it. It's the same dude that does Cemetery Man with Rupert Everett, and it's produced by Dario Argento. I want to say. Um, Actually, I take that back. Maybe I have seen the church, um, but I haven't seen it. If you know what I mean. I gotta be careful when I do group watches. I don't remember the movie afterwards because we have so much fun watching them. Possessed. All those things they taught me in Harvard. So that's his problem. He's a priest, but he went to Georgetown and Harvard. Um, I think we can all relate to that though. I mean, how many people that's your experience of church is like, all right, we believe we're all in, but don't you be talking about no devil. you know, People think you crazy, boy. But we live in America. It's real safe to be a Christian. I mean, people make fun of you, but it's all just a social club at the end of the day. I don't most people don't really believe. And I know there are some people, whether you're Protestant, non-denominational, Catholic, Orthodox. I know there's some people who would say they really believe. But then I look at my own actions and I'm like, do I really believe? Because why would I be acting this way? Jason Miller has a son named Jason Patrick, who you may remember from The Lost Boys and Rush, where he stars opposite Jennifer Jason Leigh. A really good actor and leading man, but um, his career, as far as I know, never really took off. And he also does a flick called Narc with Ray Liotta that I never saw. I'd like to check that out. Scary. Look at that camera. And again, like that just like what we saw where the camera was behind Ellen Burstyn as she's coming around the stairs. You'll see shots like that the very next 2 years, 1975, in the movie Chinatown. And that was considered revolutionary, but Chinatown has more of a like a classic Hollywood cinematography style. Um s- so it's more apparent in that movie, whereas this has the whole documentary free moving camera thing. So I believe that these great directors were taking a lot from this movie. This is Mercedes Macambridge, a real androgynous actress. Was she in like Johnny Guitar? I haven't seen any of the movies that she was in. She was much older by the time this came out. Um, if you look at stills from her previous films when she was younger, she looks a lot like Marjorie Cameron, the witch. But she's doing the voice of Linda Blair here, the voice of the demon. It wouldn't be the same with Linda Blair's cute voice. It would probably be creepy, and if I was directing this movie, I might have been like, "Yeah, let's use it. It works," but it doesn't work. That would not have worked. The Mercedes McCambridge voice is brilliant, and that was Eileen Dietz right there. That little that's creepy looking. He does that. The stunt double, not the stunt double, but Eileen Dietz, who I think was on Happy Days, and you probably recognize her if you saw a picture of her. She um she fills in for Linda Blair for some of the stuff that well, it just wouldn't be nice to make a leading actress do. So Friedkin very creepily will put in just like a quick shot of Eileen Dietz as Reagan. And even when I saw this movie for the first time, I was like, that's not Linda Blair. That was weird. But I think what Friedkin's trying to do is not create something inconsistent that takes you out of the movie, but again, subliminally make you think that's not Linda Blair. It's a demon, right? So you're cutting. It would be like if I was acting in a movie and then all of a sudden you saw a quick shot of me, but it was a different actor who looked a little bit like me. But it happened just quick enough for you to be like, wait, what? And then you move on. So that's a neat subliminal trick. And again, these are sets, but it really looks like they're in a real house. And it looks like a real house because look at that. It's just an ugly basement. She's got her wine down there, but it's not a bougie wine cellar. It looks like what any upper middle class, upper class kind of house could look like, where you got this basement that one day we'll renovate and do something with, but right now it just looks plain Jane and boring. So at this point, it's become Father Karras's movie. Um, in the novel, it's the mother's story and the priest's story, and they're moving together and they're moving together, and then bam, they hit. So anyone who's interested in writing and how do you write a story with multiple protagonists, this is a great work to study because it starts out where, all right, there's this priest who's losing his faith and his mom is sick. Okay, and then you have this actress whose daughter is sick, and then bam, then they meet and it all makes sense. It's not just rando stuff. And it's also worth noting that Friedkin wrote the novel when he left his wife. Before then, when he wasn't working for the psychological warfare department, he was writing comedies. Are you familiar with the Pink Panther? Yeah, before the Pink Panther was a cartoon, it was a Blake Edwards movie starring Peter Sellers as a bumbling inspector. Shot in the Dark. A Shot in the Dark is the first film in the Pink Panther series, and it's written by William Peter Blatty, and he divorced his wife, and he rented a beach house from Angela Lansbury, and if his kids wanted to come see him, kids knew where dad was, and he wrote this damn novel. All right, Jalo. Here's Jalo vibes. What was that? That thing moving across the curtain? Like, it's not Linda Blair, it looks huge. It looks like the best boy or the gaffer is, like, walking by with a cardboard cutout or something. Super creepy. Alright, so going back to this bullshit, the extended director's cut, this scene right here has it has, like, Paranormal Activity music over it. But why would you do that? I bet that red is really gonna pop when the 4K comes out. Trailer moment, immensely. Yeah, these scenes like this are so good, it's hard to talk because you just get sucked into it. But yeah, Linda Blair, it's so creepy, just this little girl with a scarred up face and the green v vomit stuff, the bile, whatever it's supposed to be, it's absolutely terrifying. Yeah, if I had a daughter, I mean, I probably wouldn't be recording this tonight. But that's fate, though. I don't think I would be, as drawn to this film if I was a man who had daughter. Who knows? Maybe I will have a daughter one day, but yikes. Look at his face, he's just such a good actor. It's like he's like, "I don't believe, but what am I seeing?" And this is real creepy because she's speaking in reverse, so they have to play the film in reverse. So just the way it's moving, is that weird how when you play something in reverse, it just it just looks weird. It looks weird. You can tell it's in reverse even though, like, how would you know that? I would assume that just a normal swaying back and forth in reverse would look just like a normal swaying back and forth forward, but it doesn't. Just like if you ever try to walk backwards. All right, Padre needs some scotch. Yeah, we'll talk about Exorcist 2, The Heretic another day. We'll definitely have to do a commentary for it, but if I had been the director for Exorcist 2, I would have wanted to get Sven Nykvist to shoot it. Um, but I like that John Borman with his sequel just did something completely different. And Stanley Kubrick even said, if you're gonna do a sequel to The Exorcist, you're just gonna have to get grosser and scarier. And that's why everyone hated Exorcist 2, because it's not that. It's a movie about good, whereas this is about evil. Well, let's talk about good now. And let's talk about how good can attract evil. It's that evil eye thing, you know. I I like this whole thing about how the demon reacts to the normal water as if it's holy water because that's just gonna mess up everything. Like, well, it can't be a real demon because It didn't know it was holy water. That stupid demon. What a butthead. But that's just a neat little detail. Because keep in mind, Blatty originally conceived The Exorcist as a nonfiction work. Because there was an actual exorcism from 43 of a young boy. But he wisely wrote a fiction work. Sometimes you can tell the truth better with fiction. Sometimes you can change things with fiction. Print is dead now and film is dead now. So that's why we talk about these movies and get nostalgic. So maybe nonfiction is going to have a return. I don't know. Oh, here another good jump scare is coming. This is also a great flick to study, not just for writing, but how to do jump scares. Real jump scares. A jump scare can be okay. You know, it's not cheating just because you went, ah! See, that's a great jump scare. It's a bad jump scare when it's cheap, when it's just like there's nothing going on, but there's so much tension in this movie. We're waiting to get there, and we're waiting to get there, and it's like what's going to happen, and then when that phone goes off, and it's like oh, it's not that it's a cheap jump scare; it's that we are put into the seat of the characters. This is another moment that doesn't make any sense, but it has to happen this way for the movie. So she's called Father Karras to come look at something. Now, why she would be in the room? Like, why would you go in that room in the first place? Why would you go up in that room, pull off the blanket, and pull up her night shirt? Why would you do any of this? But if she saw it there, it would be there right now, but it's not. But it just works better cinematically if it appears before our eyes. And that's just another neat effect where I can't remember if they used heat or they did something where they marked that fake torso and then using temperature it swells up. All right, that's really Georgetown. You'll see that same staircase in Exorcist 3. That's like the real dean's office of Georgetown University. That's a real priest playing, the dean or whatever. See how you get that nice soft focus too with the telephoto lens. So like shots right here, they're zoomed in and you got like a telephone or something in the foreground that's all soft focus. The 60s and especially the 70s loved that. Like if you look at album covers and there's like the dude with like the leaves in front of him and they're all soft focus. Yeah, if you want to make something have that look, that just nostalgic analog era look, just put some stuff in the foreground and zoom in and you'll get that soft focus. Father Marin. So the character Father Marin is based off of uh I believe he's a Jesuit priest by the name of help me out, Heath. Um Teliar Desjardins. I messed that all up, but he was a dude that believed he tried to make it to where like evolution and creationism could work together and like this idea that man like kind of a transhumanism thing. All right, so I like this. We're seeing Father Marin again, and this kid, this seminarian, comes with a letter. Man, Father Marin don't even have to open that letter. He knows. He's been waiting. He's been waiting. Since the moment he saw that amulet of Pazuzu at the excavation site, he knew this was coming. See, he doesn't even open the letter. William S. Burroughs looking mofo. And see, her lips are moving. I don't know what she would have been saying there, but they take out whatever she's saying. And here we are, baby. I mean, this is like, it's a movie where you're waiting and waiting to get to this moment. And then when it's finally here, you're like, wait a minute, we're already here? The most iconic shot of any motion picture, this right here. Just even Bram Stoker's Dracula, which I would love to do a commentary for, when Anthony Hopkins comes up to the house for the first time. They sneak that shot in there. I think they even do the door opening shot. And it wasn't until recently I got to see Bram Stoker's Dracula in theaters, and I noticed for the first time all this Exorcist illusion. So what the demon just said right there is Marin. I never really noticed that for the longest time, but he's going Marin. But you don't really hear, you don't really get that when you watch the movie. But the demon is calling his name. The demon knows Marin. Yeah, so in the Catholic Church, they actually have a rite of exorcism, and they actually have an office, a priest called an exorcist. Whereas in the Eastern Orthodox Church, any priest can perform an exorcism. But unless you're like in a Slavic country, it's not something that um, you're not really gonna hear about, which is a shame. Um, we got some work to do, boys. I think this piece right here is called Fantasia for Strings. I could be wrong. I might be mixing up my titles on the soundtrack, but creepy stuff. There's only one. That's another nice moment that they never go back to, but just this idea that, well, the more earthy, practical, logical priest is like, yeah, so I think there's like three personalities. Let me tell you about it. And he's like, nope, baby. There's one, and that's it. Marion just goes on in. Oh, she's ready for him too. Man, the look on the mom. I love that shot too. It happens so quick, but the mom is just like, I mean, dude, come on. It's her daughter in there. It's like she's saying, like, tell me my daughter is gonna be okay. If anything, this movie isn't long enough. I mean, it really plays out like a mini series that was consolidated into a 2.5 hour movie. There's going to be another creepy shot coming up of Eileen Dietz as Reagan. That might have even been Eileen Dietz right there spitting, but it happens so quick and her head's moving so fast you can't tell. But there's a moment coming up. I'll point it out, and it's so creepy because it's clearly not Linda Blair, but it creates the illusion that like her face is morphing. Really genius on the part of William Friedkin. And they spent all that money making this room cold, and then the lights would heat the room up and they'd have to stop. It took them a long time to shoot these scenes. Just a different era of movie making. So scary. That makeup on that face is just going to look good with that lighting, man. And I mean, this is some stylized lighting right here. It really doesn't look all that naturalistic, but I'm not taken out of it. because we're in a different space. We're in a spiritual space now, so of course it's not going to look naturalistic. But the human eye buys it. We go right with it. I'm asking myself, why are people so afraid of this movie, so upset by it? And I'm going to bring up Rob Egger one last time, y'all, because he talks about this movie and Nightmare on Elm Street as both tapping into this phenomenon, probably accidentally. And that's like this bedroom anxiety. We see a movie like this, and this is a fucking fact. Even before I saw The Exorcist, I was still afraid of it. And I could come into my bedroom at night and be afraid because I knew that there was a movie about a freaky looking girl in a bed. So that's another brilliant thing about how this movie can affect a generation of people is the bedroom anxiety stuff. Growing up, I would always ask the adults, what's the scariest movie you ever saw? I'd also ask, what's the weirdest movie you ever saw? But for tonight, we'll talk about scariest. They'd always say two movies, The Exorcist or Nightmare on Elm Street. And both of those movies are about people potentially dying in their beds. And Freddy even has some possession stuff. I mean, Nightmare 2 is a possession film. Oh, that's Eileen Deeds. See, look at this. Look, that's not Linda Blair. Look at that face. That's not Linda Blair. How scary is that? You saw it for a second. It's so quick. That's not Linda Blair. That's Eileen Deeds. How terrifying. In Exorcist 2, any shot of Linda Blair with the Exorcist makeup on is Eileen Deeds. So it's a lot more noticeable in that movie. It's not subliminal like it is here. Looks like a real bathroom. It's all a set. But it's like, yeah, it's like, what are you doing, man? Living 8 decades, preaching the word of God and banishing demons. There's got to be some time in there for fucking and feasting. Apparently, Max von Sydow had a really difficult time with that shot, saying, "I cast you out." He wasn't believable, and Friedkin was like, "Come on, man, give it to me." And Max von Sydow was like, "But I don't believe. I'm an atheist. I'm an international movie star. We don't believe in God." So he couldn't go, "I cast you out." I just think that's amazing. This is the scariest shot in the movie to me. She looks right at you and lifts up and comes at you. Terrified me when I first saw the movie. Actually, that's the second scariest. There's something that's about to happen that scared me more. And as an adult coming back to this movie 15 years later, I definitely think it scared me because unconsciously I was aware of the sexual aspect of it. Subconsciously, like generational, genetic memory kind of thing. Right here. That was so scary to me. I thought her eyes were white at the time, but no, it's her eyes are rolled back in her head, the same way a woman's might when she climaxes. So looking back at my reaction back then, I want to believe that I found that shot right there so terrifying because in a sense it was like I was seeing pornography. That might sound like a stretch and something absurd to say, but I mean, and I'm wrong. I wasn't 17 when I saw this movie. I was 16. I was still 16 when I saw this movie. Maybe I turned 17 later in the year. And you got to see stuff like this when you're young. I mean, 16, 17, that's almost too late to see a movie like this. I mean, try watching this movie for the first time when you're in your mid 20s or older. I don't even want to hear what you have to say about it because odds are you'll be like, oh, these are movies made for kids. That old man up looks really good right there. I love that the majestic Christ. Crush your skull like a nut. What movie is that from? That's also a weird moment how she hits him and he's just like still going. It's like, don't interrupt me. You don't believe in God. You don't believe in the devil. That's a cool shot. It actually jump cuts, but it looks like one continuous shot. This is scary. That little song noise she's making and the way that she's like back like that, but how like it's almost like she's bent back too far. And then it jump cuts to her on the ground on the bed. So it's like, what did we just see? Did they just have a hallucination? That's weird. I like this shot. It kind of cranes up slowly. No handheld, no documentary style, just a nice crane up. Karis in silhouette. This is tough. I mean, it makes me want to squeeze my little boy and hold him tight. This is tough stuff, and I know Friedkin has made some movies that aren't great, and some of his movies that people don't like are actually really good. Like I wouldn't mind rewatching The Guardian or Hunted. I'd watch Hunted again. But then you've got a movie like Sorcerer from 1977, which Stephen King and Danse Macabre says that's his favorite movie. And even though I sometimes disagree with Stephen King when it comes to what makes a good movie, Sorcerer is a fantastic movie. So if you watch the extended versions, you get a whole explanation here. But I like that it's not in the movie. Friedkin rightfully knew we don't need to put that here. The best movies, the best books is where you go and you try to cut out like, I don't know, 10 to 20% of it. And when you have what's left, you get an impression of a much larger world. You can just feel it. So look at his cassock. This cropped well above the ankles. See, I would want my cassock dragging the floor. But I guess you gotta keep those things clean. And I don't know, these are like nitroglycerin tablets or something. He's like trying not to have a heart attack. And he's a Chad, so he don't use water or anything. This is terrifying. Yeah, right in the eye, looking right at you. See, so Freakin's doing some Jonathan Demme stuff before Jonathan Demme. I know I pointed out that one shot that made me think of Silence of the Lambs, and when I was watching this earlier today in preparation, there was another moment that reminded me of Silence of the Lambs, but it never came back to me. But Demme is a great director, so I'm sure he saw this film and this film entered his blood, and he's referenced it either consciously or unconsciously in his career. And when I talk about Jonathan Demme, I'm talking about like the dude who gave us Something Wild, Married to the Mob, Silence of the Lambs, Caged Heat. But yeah, thanks, Linda Blair. Thanks for like sacrificing your life in some ways. Jason Miller um, allegedly, lived a life of alcoholism after this film, but I don't know if that was because of the movie. I think artists just have a really hard time, and an artist isn't that much different than a mystic or a clergyman. Um, a priest, a writer, a musician. They're vessels for spirits and powers. Um, so these people can have a hard life. So if any of the people involved in this film could hear me say it, thanks so much, because it's a movie that's in my blood, and I waited until after Blatty died, but since his death 6 years now, um, I have really enjoyed his novel, and I always find it inspiring, and it's one of those works of art. When you read it, it makes you want to write, just like listening to an album might make someone want to make music. Like, look at those hands. Like, there's even makeup on the hands, man. When they say it took 8 hours or however long it took to do this makeup, like, that's why. Like, look at that. Little kids are scary. They can call you out, and they can hurt you. They can do all kinds of things that little kids shouldn't be able to do. I guess that's why we sometimes spank them. It's like, drop kicking Chucky across the room. He went out doing what he loved, casting out demons. This is a nice moment. This is him completing his arc right here. Oh, and I never pointed out, but so Rob Ager said, she puts the crucifix. Reagan McNeil puts the crucifix right there. Then she talks to Lieutenant Kinderman. Then Kinderman leaves, and you hear the demon, and she runs up the stairs, and Reagan's got the crucifix. You get what I'm saying? Her mom leaves the crucifix downstairs, but next time we see the crucifix, it's up in the bedroom. So what happened? Unconsciously, we know that her creepy ass snuck down the stairs and got the crucifix while mom and detective are talking in the breakfast room. That is freaky. But just little things like that, just little creepy things like that. This is a great shot. Camera moving, goes from a wide shot to a close up of the hand at the door, push in, close up of Lee J Cobb looking like, girl, what's up? Oh, hell no. This is the all is lost moment. That's scary. Again, that shot of Linda Blair makes us ask: is she possessed at that moment? Is the demon just watching what's happening? What is going on? It's so ambiguous, but it feels right. Like, we buy it. Like, the demon's not attacking anybody right now. She's just watching. Oh, now she's scared, or not scared. Now she's scary, but she's laughing. This is crazy. So he's beating up this little girl. In the novel, she's 12, so that would be like prepubescent, or a year into puberty. I don't know when girls start puberty. I imagine it's around 11 or so. I think in the movie, though, she's supposed to be 14. And of course, this makes religious people mad because he's calling the demon into him. Um, Not a bad jump cut. That's not a bad jump cut where he goes from possessed to free. Incredible. I think the stuntman did that 2 times. They put padding on the steps, so the steps that you saw were actually dressed. So they had like a thin layer of like rubber on them. But dude threw himself out of the steps. It's Zen. It's Zen. That's what Jason Miller says in the terrific documentary called Fear of God by I can't remember anybody's name tonight. Mark Kermode, a film critic who loves The Exorcist but hates Exorcist 2. And it's a testament to the great writing of The Exorcist that it would probably make a good stage play if it hasn't been. Oh, and look at that. Look at that. And I'm sure in the 4K, we'll really be able to see it, like the skin on his fingers, just how they're all tore up from falling down the stairs. So again, that priest right there, William O'Malley, I believe is his real name. Father William O'Malley is not a real actor, so he really struggled with the scene. And the legend goes that William Peter Blatty said, "Do you trust me?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "Okay." And he slapped the shit out of him and then said, "Action." And that's why you're getting the "Our Father," or the trembling hand. Those are the Exorcist steps. I've counted them myself. There's 72 of them, just like the 72 names of God. I've read online that it's not 72, but I've walked those steps and I counted them. There's also an exon at the bottom of the steps, so it's called like the Exorcist exon. But the house itself isn't right up on the steps. They had to like build a facade onto the house to make it look over the steps like that. Yeah, I don't know whatever happened with Katie Wynn, but she does a really great job in this movie. Kitty Wynn, she does a really great job here. That's a St. Christopher medal. It pops up in the ninth configuration as well. You can probably watch that movie for free on YouTube. Jason Miller pops up in it, and it's got Stacy Keach and some other actors I can't remember the names of right now. I will say I do like the ending of the version you've never seen, and I'm just gonna have to own the fact that that's the version I saw first. But when I watched that version, I thought it was gonna end where this version actually ends. So this is probably the best ending because when I was watching that extended version for the first time, I really thought it was gonna cut to black, and then it didn't. It went on for like another 2 minutes. But I do like that version. I feel like seeing this new relationship blossom between priest and detective, um, William O'Malley taking Jason Miller's place. I think that's a nice touch, and you don't have that in the theatrical version. But that's okay because it is a sad movie. It's supposed to be sad. Um, but that means that the last time we see Kinderman is just when he kind of walks in the room and looks around like, oh. So also in this version, she gives it to him, and the version you've never seen, he gives it back to her. So I think I do actually like the version you've never seen ending a little better, but it's the one that I saw for the first time. So and that was such a religious experience, So the theatrical version is actually right at 2 hours. It's the longer versions that go over 2. But when I watched the version you never seen for the first time, I thought right there it was going to cut to black, like just goes into close up and then boom. But instead we get this shot, so close enough. Boom, 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 boom. That's Fantasia for strings. I was wrong earlier when I said that one track was Fantasia for strings. I don't know what that font is, but I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining me tonight. This was really fun, y'all. Um, Even though this is the original theatrical version, we're going to see Mercedes Macambridge get a credit. And that was not the case when the movie first came out. She actually sued Friedkin and Warner Brothers. But all Friedkin had to tell her was, we're not going to credit you. I think that's cool. Like in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Kathleen Turner doesn't get credit for Jessica Rabbit, but that's cool. it makes it feel like Jessica Rabbit's a real person. So by not crediting Mercedes Macambridge, it makes it feel like the demon was real. But you'll see her name pop up here. Whereas when it was in theaters, she didn't get credited. But it's been added since. Just like when Star Wars hit theaters in 1977, there was no A New Hope in the title. It was just Star Wars. There she is, and Mercedes Macambridge. They added that. And as far as Tubular Bells goes, it's I guess Virgin Records is owned by Warner Brothers or something. So when William Friedkin, the director, was going through the Warner Brothers catalog trying to find music, he claims the first record he picked up was Tubular Bells, and the rest is history. But you watch enough interviews with William Friedkin, you will learn that he is a liar, and he just knows how to tell a great story, and that's fine. We love you, Billy Friedkin. It's Billy Friedkin and Bill Blatty. But yeah, let me know. I want to do Exorcist 2. I want to do Bram Stoker's Dracula. So if there's any flicks you want me to talk about, or any insight on how to write a film, how to make a film, let's talk about it right here. But yeah, now the movie's over and it's pushing midnight, and I am scared to death. But it's been really nice being with y'all here tonight, and I will no doubt be back. I don't know if we'll jump straight into Exorcist 2. We've got a whole year, and then going into 2024 of celebrating The Exorcist. Because keep in mind, The Exorcist came out in 1973, but it was Christmas Day 1973. So it's really 1974 that's the year of The Exorcist film. I'm just listening to Tubular Bells. Just that dun 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 dun. It never resolves, so it's just like your ear can't stop listening to it. Ciao.